Okay. I'd like to call to order and open up the Town Board Budget Workshop meeting for Tuesday, October 22nd, 2019. Can we get a motion to open the meeting?
I'd like to make that motion.
I will second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Bingham. Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye. Scancarello, aye. Okay, Councilman McGinn, we had a 4-hour meeting this morning concerning the zoning and CCR, and he had to go into work, so he will probably not be here this evening. If we can all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll.
All right. So, the tentative budget that was online was worked on for the last week and a half, 2 weeks, by Helen and myself. And the one you have before you is where we're at. Presently, we are at a 7.5% increase, so we have to cut about 5.5%. It is approximately $198,262 that needs to be cut to get under the tax cap. Right now, the 2020 levy is $6,737,686, and in 19 it was $6,267,629. I have met with most of the departments. I'm still awaiting to meet with the Monroe Joint Parks and Recreation Commission. But presently, based on all those meetings, the budget right now increase in a village home is 7.23%, and in a town home, which is outside the village, is 7.94%. I'm still awaiting final numbers from the county for mortgage and sales tax estimates, and presently we have earmarked $190,000 in fund balance to offset some of the expenses. $115,000 in the DA fund and $75,000 in the DB fund. So right now, we went from, I think, the previous budget, Mary, you have that in front of you, because I didn't, was an 18% increase in the village for the tentative budget.
Village, yes, 18.53%.
And then the town was?
15.72%.
Okay, so we basically cut that in half for the most part. Anybody have any questions? So one concern that, and Councilman McGinn addressed it somewhat during conversation, was the court. So the Justice Court budget, since went from
Page 2.
Yeah, page 2, towards the top. In 2019, it was adopted for $318,000 and change. They have asked for $326,600, and I'm rounding numbers off here in the hundreds. So there was quite a bit of dollars removed from their budget. Like we removed the justice prosecutor, and that becomes a town expense. We removed some of the maintenance and repair, about $2,000, because that will now be underneath the shared services. Thank you, Helen. Also, they have asked for $11,043 for equipment, and that will be hopefully offset with a JCAP grant that they have applied for. So that's an area that I think we need to look at. Judge Schwartz had expressed concern about overtime regarding the new law reform from the state, and I wanted to set up a meeting with her and Councilman McGinn so that we can discuss the parameters which she feels is going to affect the Justice Court. From our perspective, it looks like it's more of a countywide thing, a countywide issue versus a local municipal issue. I'm in a town board meeting, dear. Got to call you back. Bye. Okay, sorry about that. So that's where we're at there.
Quick question, Supervisor?
Sure.
The stenographer, it's going from, we're already past what we allocated for 2019 at roughly $200 over, but you're more than doubling it. Is that because of also the possible changes with the?
These, just so you understand, these are numbers that I was given, so I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't. The only numbers we adjusted, I think, were the salaries.
Yes.
Because we based it on our projections versus theirs. But I guess that's part of the reason that was.
Judge Schwartz?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was up by 2.66, 2 2/3 times. Excuse me. So that was that. If we go down to the supervisor's office, there's, I believe, Helen, there is the compensation of
Yes.
part-time.
Part-time. So I can explain that. So what we've done is, when I was full-time, I was booked under the data processing department, which was a 1680 account. Now that I'm part-time, and we do have another part-time clerk that we've hired, it really should be classified under the supervisor's office, because since we don't have a controller anymore, and you are the financial head, we should be under your department. So
Okay.
that's why it's been moved.
Okay. Next up is the town auditor, which pretty much went up $1,000. After that is the tax collector, which went up a little bit over $1,600. And some of that was salary increases. It was I believe it was a 2% increase in salaries. There was a tax collector, tax roll and bill preparation, which dropped a little bit. And then the contractual, which was for the service to generate the tax bills, correct?
Yes, for Orange County.
Right, for Orange County. And then she did cut the dues, educations, and meetings by $300. Okay, the budget officer remains at $7,500. The assessor, April was very diligent in going through this budget. The contractual, which is $7,100, if I remember correctly, that was an increase from the programs, I believe, that she has.
Just so you know, Tony, in addition to that, there's the vehicle lease.
Right, the vehicle lease, which was added.
Which was added.
Right. I'm sorry, that's what that is. That contractual, I'm sorry, that's the vehicle lease. And the insurance just went up because it's a new vehicle. Unfortunately, their old
Correct.
vehicle, the engine seized when Nancy was up in Ithaca, so it was deemed as surplus. We haven't declared it surplus yet, but the cost to fix it is way too much, and it's more than the value of the actual Liberty Jeep that they used. So that's where the deduction in vehicle maintenance came into play, because the maintenance is included in the lease. Now, the increase in the compensation of full-time employment, which is going from 43,775 to 48, that's based on the employee passing the exam and being in the top 3 on the civil service list. And then the compensation for part-time employees is a combination of all the employees in there who are part-time, and that relates to 3 employees.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And just so everybody is aware, for now, we plugged in a 2% increase across the board for all salaries, so that it just gives you a general idea of what those numbers would be. And I believe, Tony, you want to do some kind of an analysis, right, on different increases this week?
Yes. So we'll discuss salaries at our next meeting, but I'm going to do an analysis of the cost of salary increases at 1.5%, 2%, and 2.5%. This way we could see what the cost to the town would be for each. Okay, down to town clerk, which remained relatively the same. And getting back to the assessor, they're below the cap, the town clerk is below the cap. When I say the cap, the 2% cap, that would apply. Now we go down to town attorney, and that 22,000, which is highlighted, we penciled in for the prosecutor. And last year, we had $32,000 in legal contractual lawsuits, which we haven't booked anything in that yet, but we definitely want to maintain that cost there, because we still have a couple of lawsuits that are in litigation. Our HR consultant remains the same. There was a drop in the election contractual, and Mary Ellen's not here, so I would rather her explain that and the reasoning behind that. I go down to the ethics board. They dropped $200 in their budget from $3,200 to $3,000. Public information, that is board docs and our software maintenance. That is $18,000, down from $19,200. And then we get into shared services, which is a culmination of this salaries for our maintenance, uniforms, equipment, gas and electric, telephone, sewer, everything associated with any of the buildings, janitorial supplies, maintenance, and what have you. That went from $450,932 to $435,737. And again, these numbers are not finalized. These are just numbers that I have prepared with Helen, and everything is subject to change.
And I believe, Tony, you worked with Orange and Rockland on the, for the electric bills, so there's a reduction, I believe, in those lines, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, next up is the state police, and based on the new lease that we have signed, and we're actually awaiting the revenue from 2018 and 2019. as per the new lease that was signed. But there are some contractual obligations based on that lease, and that's why the equipment and capital outlay remained the same, and we upped the building repair and maintenance. So that went from $38,200 to $40,500. So the theater building, which we have some responsibility there, the sewer assessment is reimbursed to us. And I think we have to remove those two items, Helen, now that I'm looking at it, because they pay them directly.
Okay. And that
So
is
just-
for sewer?
That's 1622
Yeah.
0000 and 1622 1950.
Yes.
47, 57.
I'm sorry, 1950 and 4250.
Yeah. Okay. So those two come out completely?
Yeah, those two come out completely.
Okay.
Yep. So the elevator inspection and maintenance is part of our lease with them. We maintain that. Fire and sprinkler inspections, we left 500 in there just in case there's something that arises. The building repair and maintenance, we've left 5,000 in there because we do maintain the roof and anything that pertains to the outer portion of the building. And the property insurance is 10,000, but we are reimbursed on the insurance, I believe, or is that just our general liability for that?
I'm thinking that's our general liability, but I'll check into it tomorrow.
Okay. Central communications, that's Optimum and the phone lines, which we have just switched over last week to Newcastle, and we have a substantial savings on that, and they've switched everything over, and right now we're in the process of getting the new phones installed upstairs on the first floor. Central storeroom, we've kind of streamlined all the printing, stationery, and supplies needed for all the departments, so that each department doesn't have a line item there. And the additional cost is mainly associated with the copier and the postage lease, which went from $12,282 to an estimate of $17,000 this year, which is why the adopted budget from last year, $41,732, went to $46,800. Central data processing, which is all our software maintenance and anything to do with that.
And that's also, Tony, where we dropped out, if you look at the very first line, the 1680-102.
That's where you dropped out, right?
So
Okay.
that's the big difference.
Okay, that went from 126,631 to 59,9. So when you get into the total shared services, last year's adopted budget was $696,356, and this year we're anticipating $640,592. Okay, these are the special items. Helen, do you want to just go over this? These are just the sewer assessments?
Yeah, these are the, on the properties that are listed here, we're not exempt from paying sewer charges. Obviously taxes, but not sewer. So, those are what we have been paying in the middle column year to date. So we're just estimating for the new year.
And something like the 11 Stage Road, that'll be reimbursed because we're leasing that to the Etzkayam congregation. They're just about ready to move in there. So when you look at the total general government support, we went from $2,082,302 to $2,140,5 $2,556, which is approximately an increase of wait a minute, I did that wrong, sorry. A little bit over 1%.
Which is the,
No,
which is,
no, that's not right. Wait a minute. 2140. Just a little over 6%. Okay, animal control. Presently, it looks like the contract will be renewed with the IMA with Woodbury, and it will be $22,500. The ambulance department met with me last week, and we've come up with these figures. The increase in the EMT coverage is due to a salary increase. They went from $29 an hour to, I think it was $30.75 an hour. Thus the increase of about $14,000. And their total budget went from $287,900 to $295,880. The highway administration personnel services, all the way down to the administrative contracts, their budget dropped from $159,746 to $158,182. Their garage equipment, fire inspections, water and refuge went from $50,780 to $62,250. There's a line in there of $8,000 for engineering. I had gone up to the Village of Montgomery, and they built a pole barn, which is associated with a grant. So I met with Mayor Brescher, and I met with Dave Jenkins, with Rick, and we're going to try to grab some sort of grant for that. So that would also encompass enclosing some of the dial-a buses underneath a roof. So now down to dial-a bus operations. So their total budget dropped from $539,271 to $497,492. Everything with that drop was basically attributed to the purchase of new buses, which last year was $36,000. That was buses and equipment. Now we penciled in $5,000, and essentially what happened was they were over budget. They went over by $12,595. And then the only aspect I would like the board to consider and talk about is line 5630, 4500, which is bus operations contractual. They have, that's the IMA with the town of Warwick for consultation with their bus supervisor. My thought with that is to do it for either 4 or 6 months versus a year. We've been doing it for, we've been doing it for 13 months, and we have another 2 to go. It might be 14 months and another 2 to go. So I think that's something we need to look at as a board, whether we want to approve that. Parks Department. So this is Alex Smith, Monbassia, Checkerboard Faber, and the O&R property. Emery Morris has overseen all the aspects of this, with the exception of Checkerboard and Faber Farm. and their budget has dropped from 95,720 to 92,294. The historical markers, 3250 versus 3750 this year. Celebrations, which include Food Truck Festival?
Yes.
Or did we create a new line for that?
No, that one is the Food Truck Festival. What used to be in there, but we've moved to the B Fund, is for like the Memorial Day
Memorial Day?
Parade.
Okay.
So there's a new celebrations in B.
Okay. And the reason we did that is the village residents were essentially getting charged twice for that because the
Correct.
village was paying their portion and we were paying their portion out of the town-wide fund, out of the A fund, so we wanted it in the B fund. So it was just attributable to town residents. Okay, we got Meals on Wheels, which stayed the same at $2,000. And then you have the senior center, which went from $120,627 to $119,161. You got the codification, which stayed the same at $9,400. Our landfill and composting went from $21,600 to $19,200. And the employee benefits went from $1,097,524 to $1,084,005, which is a drop of approximately $13,500. You want to explain what that was from, Helen?
Well, there were several, like myself, that have gone part-time. That's a reduction in the benefits, along with a few others. In addition to that, in the hospitalization, we don't have a number yet from them, but what we've estimated is 9% increase. I would doubt that it would be a 9% increase, but to be on the safe side for now, we've plugged that in.
Okay, thank you. Now, we get into the debt service on our bonds and bands. So, with everything that's gone on between the All Mine acquisition, the All Mine expenses, our bonds and notes, the debt service on them went up to $498,365, of which approximately $260,000 is attributable to All Mine. So this is what we're dealing with from the past.
Last one.
This is our reserve funds. So the transfer to capital project fund for the ambulance. What has happened in the past is the ambulance is going to be buying a new vehicle this year, and they're going to be short about $45,000 based on what's in their capital fund. So what we did was I tried to put enough money in there so that every 7 years or so they're able to buy a new ambulance and not affect in a large way the budget. So we went from $10,000 to $28,000 there. The capital projects for the park reserve, that's for Monbassia, Faber Farm, O&R, and Alex Smith Pavilion. So that we added $10,000 into that. The local share for the bus purchase reserve for Dial a Bus, we put 15 in there so that in 6 years we can have a fund there that would allow us to purchase, let's say, 6 new buses and not be affected in an adversarial way. And then what we did is we created a senior center reserve fund of $5,000. So in the past, that budget was 15 and we went up to 58. So the total appropriations for the A fund went from $4,736,000 to $5,078,000. Now we're in the B fund. I didn't go over revenues in the A fund because I don't want to, I want to do that next week so we can kind of get better numbers. Excuse me. So legal and engineering in the B fund, that went from $319,500 to $376,500. That's got to do with predominantly lawsuits. The increase in that is $57,000. We go down to public services and information. That's all our maintenance, Optimum Online, equipment repair, and so forth. That remained pretty flat. It was an increase of $500 from $46,850 to $47,350. DeAngelis Refuge, we don't have to worry about anymore. Central Store, that's the equipment, stationery, and office supplies for the B fund. That dropped from $12,500 to $8,200. Then we have special items, the MTA tax. That went from $868.80 to $918.48, and that's based on a percentage increase.
Correct.
In that account, that's just there's a contingency account there which has $18,000 in it as well. Safety inspection, which is the building inspector, their budget went from $209,481 to $211.30. That's a minimal increase. And there's other public safety aspects, which is the refuge and safety contractual, which dropped from $3,900 to $2,000. Smith Clove Park. So this is tentative. I still have yet to meet with them. They came in at $302,000 last year. This year, we have them at $364.50. Then we have celebrations, which went from, well, it stayed the same, $15,500 to $15,500. So the total culture and recreation budget went from $317,500 to $322,864.50, an increase of a little over $5,300. Zoning, their entire budget was $27,982 this year. Next year, we're looking at a little bit over $31,100. And that's based on minimal increases everywhere, with the exception of the dues, meetings, and mileage, which it's not an increase. It basically remains the same, although they haven't, nothing's been coded there yet. But they have a couple
but
things coming
I
up.
think there's some classes coming up.
Right, we approved 2 of them last night. And the same for planning. Planning went from $78,461 down to $73,535. Our master plan is basic legal, general administration, and contractual, $7,000 and $7,500. Next up is the annexation proceedings, which also incorporates any village, a potential village, the Seven Springs application. So that remained at $10,000. In the B fund codification remained at $2,000. Conservation, they went from $2,300 down to $1,550. And home and community services, the total budget went up approximately $1,000, just short of that, from $131,743. Now we get into employee benefits. Helen, I'll turn that over to you.
Again, it's, you know, if anybody that's been paid in the B fund, if we've lost employees or have gone part-time, the benefits would be based off of salary. So there is a decrease. It went from actually very little of it. No, 164 to 155. So there is a is a decrease.
Thank you, George.
And, like, for instance, the retirement, that's based on whatever the salary is. So those numbers, will adjust depending on a tier that a person is in for retirement and what their salary is.
Okay. So the total appropriations for the B fund last year was $1,224,964. This year, we have a tentative budget of $1,275,444. In the DA fund, townwide highway, the total budget went from $841,711 to $844,208. And this year, it included $115,000 from the appropriated fund balance. Wait a minute. Yes, okay. $115,000, which we're going to use from fund balance.
Tony, one thing I was going to ask you to mention maybe to John, I just happened to notice later today, in the snow removal sand, so this year in 2019, we didn't budget anything, but we've spent $1,000 so far, and then we still have the rest of the year. And in 2000, we haven't budgeted anything. So I'm wondering if maybe we should put something in for sand.
Okay. All right. In addition, a conversation was had between John and myself. John had spoken to Zalman, who was the highway supervisor over in KJ, and it was determined that the liability for us was too great going forward to continue plowing the roads over in KJ and renewing the contract. So there will be some revenue loss from that, but with the fact that we had 3 routes over there, 2 of which had had trucks that were on their last legs, and what would have happened is if 1 or 2 of them broke down, and one of them did break down last year, actually, when I was in it with John Sherney, it puts a burden on taking care of our roads over here in our town, and John did not want to take that chance, and I commend him for that, because the liability would have been too great. Number 1, for the people over in KJ, and number 2, for the people in Monroe if it happened. So KJ had decided to go to another contractor to take care of their roads. I don't know what it's going to cost them, but I know that our highway department breathed a sigh of relief, because what happens over there if it snows, if you've never been out there, there is a continuation of activity. There are school buses on the roads, whether there's an inch of snow out or a foot of snow out. People are walking around on the streets as if it's a sunny day. We did have one accident, not this year, the year before. Thank God nobody was hurt, just a telephone pole, or I should say an electric pole. So I thought it was a wise decision on John's part to not place any more liability on the town of Monroe. So the total budget for brush weeds and snow removal went from $656,123 down to $627,437, and that'll bump up a little based on what Helen had just recommended regarding the sand.
Won't it go down comparatively from last year, because if we're not contracting with the village, we're saving on salt and man hours?
Well, what happened with that was they paid their own salt.
Right, oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, the other thing is our revenues went down from it too.
That too, right.
Yeah, I mean, we made a little money over there with it in the past. I would venture to say we lost in the hundreds of thousands based on the previous contracts. But John was diligent in the way we worked the last set of contracts, so. Okay, Once again, the benefits, Helen explained the details in the A fund and in the DA fund. We're going from $185,588 to $216,774. So the total appropriations from the DA fund went from $841,711 to $844,209, a real minor increase. So now we get into the DB fund, and these are expenses. We're looking at MTA tax and contingencies. They dropped approximately $5,000 from $31,800 to $26,850. We get into general repairs. General repairs have gone from $831,363 to $689,154. Our CHIPS program, based on the fact that John Sherney and Mary Ellen worked together to add the roads that were omitted. It went from $106,000 to $120,000. The DB machinery, that went from $423,634 to $601,190. And if I'm
We did add a new mechanic, but we are going to be getting reimbursed
half of his salary,
Yes.
yeah. Half of his salary is reimbursable because he has a job description with which he is responsible for 50% of the highways repairs and 50% of dial buses. So we get full reimbursement from that 50% from the federal aid of dial bus. Sidewalks from 9,000 to 4,500. DB benefits, 364,692 to 397,292. The bond and notes for the principal of a new truck. The principal reduction is $8,875, and the interest is $8,999. And then we have a capital reserve fund, which we set up for the purchase of a new truck, which is $25,000. So in total, the total DB appropriations went from $1,838,990 to $1,881,861. And that's basically it on our budget. We'll leave drainage and other items up for the future, drainage and sewer and water. So maybe what we'll try to do next week is we'll do revenue and drainage and water, because there are some numbers we still have to tweak with regard to water. Anybody have any questions? Okay, so we have to go into executive session because we have to notice elected official salaries by next Thursday. So I would like to get that done tonight. So if
That's the notice of it, right?
that's the notice of it,
Because we don't have
correct?
a full board to vote on it.
Right. So right now, I'd like to make a motion to go in executive session to discuss elected official salaries.
I'll second.
Call the question?
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Canoa, aye?
Scancarello, aye.
Okay, so. Okay. The camera was. So, I'd like to make a motion to return to regular session.
I
I'll
will
second.
Oh,
I'm gonna go with Mrs. Bingham on that one.
I would too.
Yeah,
She was
okay.
there first.
So Councilwoman Bingham wins the second on the return to executive session. Okay, so we have to approve elected officials' salaries this evening. So I would like to make a motion to have all elected official salaries increased by 2%.
I can go with that, but can I make an exception on that?
Sure. Do you want to second that, and then we'll go to the...
I'll second that
Okay.
for discussion.
Go ahead, what's the exception?
A 2% for the town board members, except for the supervisor. I'd like to,
Well, and the highway superintendent and town clerk?
Yes, because they're
Yes.
elected officials.
because they're elected officials as well.
And the judges?
Are we doing the judges too?
Yeah, we have to, yeah.
They're
Yes.
elected.
Oh, yeah, all elected
Yeah.
officials, that's correct.
Okay.
The other increase that I wanted to propose was for the town supervisor. Town supervisor has done an extraordinary job, I feel, and I'm sure the rest of the board agrees, with all the things that this town has been through. He's done an exceptional job on this budget and has, for the last 2 years, working on this town. We are one of the largest townships, even with the loss of the village. I believe we're, number 2 and number 3, as far as the largest townships in the county. So I would like to propose a $5,500 increase to the $65,000 salary, which would bring him up to $73,54 and $68. And
I'll second that.
2% And 2% for the rest of us.
All right, so let's do this. You have to make a new motion on that. So let's go through the motion for the town board.
Officials.
Yeah, so I will rescind that motion and make the motion to have the town board, town clerk, highway superintendent, and town justices receive a 2% increase in salaries. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? Call the question?
Bingham, aye.
Cologne.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarello, aye.
Okay, so moved. Now you have to,
Now, as far as the supervisor's concerned, I'd like to again make that increase of $5,500 added to the base salary, which would bring him up to $73,5468. By the way, he's still lower than the assessors and office and building inspector as well. That would be, $70,854, $70,854.68 for the supervisor. Can I get a second on that?
I will second.
Call the question.
you have to call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne.
Cardone abstain.
Scancarello, aye.
Okay, so moved. Thank you all very much. I appreciate the vote of confidence.
It is a vote of confidence
Thank you.
compared to all the things you've done. Tony, thank you very much for all your hard work, because every time I come into town, even late in the evening, you're still here. So I think it's only fair, and I know the other board members see that as well.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
agree.
You do.
I agree.
Thank
Hard
you.
working supervisor.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much. Okay, so if there's no other business, I know the ZBA has a meeting in 10 minutes.
All right, when is the next budget meeting again?
It's going to be October 29th, 2019.
And
And
Monroe
we'll be
will
here at 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock?
Is that
Yeah.
next Tuesday at 6?
Monroe will be here or be square.
Be here or be square.
That's it.
All right, so I'll make a motion to adjourn this budget meeting.
I'll second.
Call the question.
Bingham, aye.
Cologne, aye.
Cardone, aye.
Scancarello, aye.